the remarkable digital notebook. What is it, and do architects and designers need it? Is the remarkable good enough to replace a traditional sketchbook or notebook for architects and designers? Let's find out in this video. Hey everybody, this is Dimitar from UH Studio Design. The Remarkable is an e-ink tablet that supports very few functions. It can only read, write, and markup, nothing else. Why? Digital devices have started taking over our lives in many ways. We take notes in them, we sketch ideas whenever they come to us. It's quite nice to have that convenience. But with the convenience also comes the distraction of being always on, always notified about everything that's happening everywhere. Anytime we try to do something, we get distracted by something else and everything is available, and we go down the rabbit hole where we look at YouTube videos about technology forever. Anyways, so back to the Remarkable tablet. It's an e-ink device with a stylus that's non-powered, and it's very useful for writing and sketching. I use it for sketching quite a lot. What's quite nice is that it doesn't need to be illuminated and it can be used in sunlight. It is very similar to the screen display on a Kindle. It's slightly less saturated but quite bright, and it can be seen in all kinds of angles. So I want to talk a little bit about the reason why I got it. A couple of years ago, I was studying for my US architectural exams. For those exams, we need to study a series of very large textbooks. Now, studying between home and work and lunch and anywhere in between, bagging those big books around would have been quite a drag. So that's why I decided that it's important to get something that's quite portable. So what's quite important with books that works quite well, especially for studying, is being able to open a book and knowing that at a very specific place there's some important information, which is very difficult in a digital format, especially a Kindle format where there's just a flow and you don't quite understand where it is. With the Remarkable, it's a little bit different because PDFs are PDFs. It has a large enough size. You still don't quite know like which page it is if you can flip quickly, but you could find it much easier and quicker than you would in a completely digitally transformed format without page numbers. The other nice thing about the Remarkable in terms of PDFs, we can place notes anywhere that we need to. So for example, if I find a PDF, I can go and sketch. The page is not quite an A4 size or a US letter size. It's about the size of a Moleskine sketchbook, which is a good size, a little bit tight and constrained for reading textbook PDF sizes, but nevertheless did this job way better, and it was so much lighter and I could still review information fairly easily. So after that I forgot about the device for a few years, and then a few years later I found it again and rediscovered it. And I started using it the way that I thought it was meant to be used for people like me from the beginning, which is sketching and drawing and really replacing sketchbooks. Let's talk a little bit about how it compares to a sketchbook. I have a few sketchbooks for my projects at the office, for projects at home, for YouTube projects, and now I can actually have all my notes in one device. The writing experience is really nice. It's not quite as good as a sketchbook, but again, for people like us that sketch a lot, replicating the pen and the pencil and the marker experience is still a good way off in some respects. However, it does come very close, and it does have the benefit of some additional tools that our notebooks and sketchbooks cannot replicate, such as layers, copying and pasting, and more pens and pencils available at hand for any time. The pen is like a Wacom pen in the sense that it doesn't need to be charged. The pen also comes with a series of tips that are easy to be replaced. The feel of the actual screen is really nice. It's got a little bit of a matte texture, but I think because it does have that matte texture, the tips go a little bit faster than I would like them to. In addition, it does have some connectivity, which I only wish was better, so it can connect to Cloud App on your mobile device or your computer. And you can send your notes in there, including an NSVG or PDF vector format, so you can actually go on and open those sketches in your favorite vector editing program like Affinity Designer and continue to edit them. That experience with the whole software side is a little bit limited. I'm not a very big fan of it. I wish it just worked like anything else where I can connect it to a cloud drive and it can sync my notes in there. But hopefully with a few more iterations of the software, which is getting better all the time, we get there with this device. Talk a little bit more about the interface a little bit more. Let's talk a little bit about file organization. Everything is stored in folders. If we need to, there's no folder, or if we want to, we can make some specific folders. The only two files that are allowed to be on the Remarkable are Remarkable's native format for notebooks and PDFs. There's nothing else. So if you have a PNG or a JPEG and you want to get it into the Remarkable, unfortunately, you have to go through an extra step to convert that to a PDF. So usually I do that in Affinity Photo Designer, where I take my JPEG and I save it as a PDF so I can load it in. I need to do that anyways, because if I'm sketching over something, I find that I need to turn down the opacity significantly before I can bring it in, because if I don't have the opacity on, then it's really hard to read the sketch. The notebooks have multiple layers, as mentioned before. So they have pages. I don't know if there's a limit to pages yet. I've had some with 500 pages and going on. At some point I start having new ones, because then it's hard to find information from before. Pages can be moved around within the notebook, duplicated, or they can be moved out to a different notebook if need comes. Now let's compare it to the iPad. So it is about the same size as the iPad Air or the iPad Pro 11-inch, and it has much less function. So why would you use that if you have an iPad? For me, the Remarkable device is like my sketchbook, whereas the iPad is like my tracing paper, where I can sketch ideas, so I can develop a sketch a lot more in detail, I can put notes and so on. But I find that it's a little bit too much to have the screen on all the time, and I do tend to get distracted. So I don't think any of these devices do everything that I need, but the two of them work complementary to one another. Unfortunately, it does mean carrying another device, another battery to be charged, but it is probably better than having a stack load of tracing paper, going in there and scanning, and having sketches that go and get scanned and then being traced over. Would I recommend the Remarkable tablet? Well, it depends. If you're thinking about sketching experience and drawing experience, and you're thinking between the iPad or the Remarkable, I would definitely go for the iPad first, especially since the cheaper iPads these days all have the capability to use the Apple Pencil, and they actually could cost even less than the Remarkable tablet. If you're a student that needs to read a lot of books, highlight, edit things, and use simple sketchbooks, then I would recommend the Remarkable, because it is much easier to read on it than it is on the iPad. I get fatigued after reading on the iPad after a while with the screen being on all the time. I'm sure you do as well. If you're in a budget, you probably don't need any of these devices. You can still read your books where they exist, and a good old trusty sketchbook is still the best resource, the easiest to flip around and go. However, if you do have an iPad and you're thinking about a second device, or you need it more for reading and for studying, but also like the sketchbook experience of having all your notebooks in one place, then I would recommend the Remarkable. Or if you have an iPad and you're tired of having too many sketchbooks or a series of PDFs around, then I would also recommend getting the Remarkable. It's a bit of a complicated answer, but these days everything feels a little bit complicated. I don't think there's a one device that can win it all. I wish there was, I really wish there were, but at the moment, unfortunately, it doesn't exist. What is happening instead is that new devices are coming out that are filling in a very small niche, like the Remarkable, just make you realize how useful that type of device is. And maybe, who knows, someday there'll be another device that's similarly useful, that fills a niche market that we need to add to our series of never-ending devices. Thank you for watching, hope you find this useful. Let me know if you like these kinds of videos. Thumbs up for the video, thumbs down if you don't, please subscribe. What is the setup that you use for sketching and for drawing?